You know what is happening. Words cut like blades, gossip, whispers, looks. The intention is clear, to extinguish your shine. Personal light can never be extinguished, but you find yourself surrounded by shadows. Those voices, they talk, they murmur, they whisper, and you listen, question, doubt. It's not confusing, it's cruel, and the truth doesn't protect you. Observe the facts. Gossip grows. It contaminates the environment. It tries to shape perception. And you adapt, omit, hide. There is no mystery in this. There is a devaluation pattern that repeats itself. You call it a misunderstanding, but the reality is harsher. It's manipulation. It's control. You shine in the dark, and even so you allow doubt to consume you. The shine doesn't require validation. But insecurity demands constant reaffirmation. No one can extinguish what you truly are, but you insist on keeping the door open. Those who speak have no power over you, unless you give them space for it to happen. The objective truth is this: nothing changes because you still care about other people's opinions. As long as you let yourself be affected, the labyrinth of rumors will continue to exist. You don't need more confirmation. You don't need more time. You need to decide whether you will allow the shadow to define who you are. There is no comfortable ending here. There is only the point at which you realize your essence is inextinguishable. That point doesn't arrive on its own. You find yourself in a cycle of echoing voices and whispers that reverberate inside you. With each word, another wound. You wonder if the truth has been distorted to the point of not recognizing your own reflection anymore. What is confidence when the foundations are corroded? What is love when it unfolds in criticism disguised as concern? Conversations become a strange dance between affection and rejection. You look around while they weave their narratives, as if your life were a play, but the protagonist seems to be a stranger. The feeling of being watched by the shadows is oppressive. They don't see you. They see the image they have created. And you accept, retreat, adapt. But the adaptation turns into a mask. Each passing day, this mask grows heavier. It starts to suffocate, and you realize you can no longer breathe. Look again. The people you once considered close are now distant, not for lack of love, but for the choice to stay on the surface. You speak, but feel that the words don't reach. What should be understanding turns into incomprehension. Affection turns into reproach. You try to explain yourself, try to make them see what you really are. But the words are not enough. They get lost in the atmosphere filled with judgments. You don't need absolution, you need recognition. A look that doesn't judge, but sees. Why does the need for others' approval weigh so much? Because deep down you fear being invisible. You strive to shine, but the brightness fades when confronted with the other's denial. The internal battle intensifies, and at some point you realize you're not the only one fighting. Everyone is. Everyone trying to cross the fog of assumptions and prejudices. And it hurts. The pain is real. It scrapes the skin, sinks into the soul. You find yourself questioning everything. Who you are, what you want. The pressure of expectations turns into an unbearable weight. Each judgment is a blow, each misinterpretation an attack. When you look at others, you don't just see judges or critics. You see reflections of your own insecurities. They also have their battles. They feel small, insignificant, in a world that demands more. And so they end up projecting their anxieties onto you. It's a vicious cycle in which everyone is trapped, convinced that their voices are the only ones that matter. Now, what to do with this reality? Continue the endless struggle or take a stand? The labyrinth is comfortable. The familiar becomes a prison. You hesitate. The fear of being misunderstood, of being rejected, keeps you on the edge of making a decision. But this edge is narrow. Each day, it becomes tighter. What if you push this barrier? What if you decide to break the cycle? The vision of a different path is frightening, but it also provokes a kind of excitement. There is freedom in uncertainty. It promises a space where you no longer need to justify your being, where you can simply exist. Thus, a choice emerges. Not one that seeks the validation of others, but one that seeks self-recognition. The raw truth is that no one can define your essence except yourself. How many times have you allowed yourself to be silent out of fear? How many layers of self-restriction have you put on to please others? Now it is time to strip them off. Every criticism is a lesson, every gossip, a mirror. What they say reflects more about them than it does about you. You do not need to absorb these words. They hold no power unless you allow it. And this power you grant them, what does it cost you? It is time to weigh it. Every moment you submit is a moment you renounce. Renounce the light, renounce the shine. These are choices that build your narrative, that shape your existence. Reality is harsh, but it does not need to be cruel. You decide if you are going to be the author of your story or just a secondary character. And when you understand that your essence is not subject to criticism, your freedom will draw nearer. This realization does not come alone. It is a daily construction, one step at a time. And the first step is to realize the constant internal battle. Accept that perhaps you've given too much to those who would never value it. In the end, you will face an undeniable truth. The shine does not depend on approval. It exists because you exist. The reality has already been presented. You realize that when looking inward, a new layer of understanding is revealed. The battle is not just against others, it is also against yourself. The echo of inner criticisms becomes deafening. Every negative word you have internalized, every doubt you have embraced, builds an even more intricate labyrinth. The truth is that the denial of your own worth is reflected in daily interactions. You see yourself as an actor in a game you never wanted to play, reacting to scripts written by others. Expectations become invisible shackles that bind you. Every time you concede, every time you hide, a piece of you is erased, and you know it. Deep down, a voice whispers. It is faint and distant, but it exists. It is restless, questioning. Why do you allow others to decide who you are? The weight of others' opinions, idealized as protection, actually serves as a prison. While you seek approval, you let the essence of your authenticity slip away. And the consequences of this behavior are profound. Families drift apart. Friendships grow strained. You feel like a stranger in your own life. Over time, each interaction transforms into a dance of masks, where the true self remains hidden in the shadows. Disillusionment sets in, and loneliness becomes familiar. No one seems to notice the internal struggle. After all, everyone is trapped in their own labyrinths. You begin to notice the patterns: eyes that avoid contact, forced smiles, conversations revolving around cliches. It's a sad but familiar scene, a collective illusion of understanding that dissolves at the first sign of vulnerability. What do you really desire? What would make your heart race? These questions echo unanswered. But in the midst of chaos, clarity emerges, the recognition that this battle is yours alone. And when you decide to take ownership of this truth, something changes. A spark of courage begins to burn. The idea of breaking the cycle, of confronting your own image reflected in those shadows, becomes a palpable desire. You no longer want to be a character in someone else's story. The impulse to liberate yourself then arises. A step, albeit hesitant, begins to form. It may be through writing, the arts, or any other form that expresses your truths. You write a letter, not to anyone, but to yourself. A manifesto to the self that was trapped in expectations. The need to give voice to the silence that hurts so much is born. On this paper, you pour out your insecurities, your frustrations, your hopes. When you finish, there is relief. The weight seems to have lessened. A new light seeps into the dark cracks of your mind. The path ahead may be foggy, but it is yours. It requires no permission, needs no validation. This is uncharted territory where you finally see yourself as someone worthy of existence. Sure, there is fear. Fear of rejection, fear of misunderstanding. But fear cannot be your guide. It should not dictate your narrative. Every wound inflicted is not a blow, but an invitation to reflection. A call for you to rewrite your story. A story that is not about pleasing others, but about being true to yourself. The external voices diminish. They lose power. Because now you focus on finding your own voice. You realize that it's not just others who have their battles. Everyone has scars and imperfections. What once seemed like an attack transforms into compassion. Understanding that criticisms often stem from others' unresolved insecurities brings a new perspective. The game changes. You begin to surround yourself with people who see beyond. Those who recognize the complexity of the human experience. Those who understand that vulnerability is in fact an act of courage. However, this is not done in a sugar-coated way. Relationships become more authentic, but also more challenging. Conflicts arise. The discomfort is real, but you accept this as part of the process. At the end of the day, you realize that life is not made of approvals and applause. It is made of experiences, of choices, and the most important choice is to be yourself without excuses. This decision is not a finish line but a starting point. From there, you shape your own path. Your essence resurfaces and thus it shines without the need for approval. The reality has already been presented and you are ready to live with it. You know that the journey does not end here. The truth is that the newly discovered light can be dazzling. With every step you take, the shadow of the past tries to rise again, like a sleeping ghost waiting for the chance to whisper doubts. But now, you know your worth, and that changes everything. You look around and notice that faces are no longer just figures in a scene. They are reflections of experiences, scars and stories, just like yours. This brings a new kind of empathy. Conversations that were once superficial now deepen into murkier waters. You encounter people who also carry their own armor, hiding vulnerabilities, fears, and frailties. Thus the masks fall slowly, revealing a shared humanity. Each narrative reveals a common pattern, insecurity and a desire for connection. But it's not easy. Sometimes the weight of this awareness feels overwhelming. With each revelation, a tinge of sadness arises, sadness for moments lost in illusions of perfection and acceptance. There is no escaping the pain that accompanies this new experience. It is a discomfort that challenges superficiality, but is also an invitation to authenticity. You realize that the fragility of others does not diminish your strength. On the contrary, it expands your capacity to love and understand. This is a rare skill. You begin to embrace the ambiguity of relationships. They are no longer about approval or validation. They become spaces where vulnerability and authenticity are exchanged. And by doing this, you realize that true intimacy does not come from perfection, but from brutal honesty. Days pass, and life continues to unfold. There is a freshness in the air, a new perspective. However, doubt does not completely disappear. It echoes as a reminder. What if? The questions remain, but now they hold no power. You do not get lost in them, you observe them like passing clouds. You find refuge in words. Each written sentence is a release. You transform painful experiences into art. You turn weight into lightness. The pages come to life and your fears, insecurities, and hopes begin to dance before your eyes. It is a simple yet profound act of reclaiming your own narrative. By sharing these words with others, something surprising happens. Your stories resonate. They touch hearts and open doors that were locked. You are not alone in this maze. Each connection you make is a thread that links souls. It is a reminder that life is a tapestry composed of interwoven strings of wisdom and pain. Loneliness no longer weighs as heavily. You begin to see beauty in the vulnerability that once seemed a burden. Human interactions become more meaningful. Moments of spontaneous laughter, shared tears, and comfortable silences replace superficiality. You find yourself surrounded by a support network that you helped build. Now it is not just about you, it is about a collective moving forward together. However, there are still challenges. Those old ghosts appear at unexpected moments. The inner critic resurfaces, trying to undermine your confidence. But this time, you don't back down. You observe, you breathe, you confront. And slowly, you learn to laugh at that voice that once echoed so loudly. The voice that says it's not enough becomes just a distant whisper. When you finally accept imperfection, when you make room for uncertainty, a new kind of freedom takes hold. Your essence shines more intensely now because it no longer depends on external validation. It is a genuine light, rooted in the acceptance of all the parts that make up who you are. Over time, you discover that true change is not linear. There are setbacks, but they do not define your progress. Every misstep is just a lesson in disguise. The journey becomes a cycle of continuous growth, where fear turns into fuel and uncertainty into possibility. You find yourself engaging in deeper conversations, diving into the complexities of life, sharing dreams, fears, and aspirations. The act of opening up becomes an act of courage. You understand that every word exchanged is a brick in the construction of solid relationships. The need to hide dissolves in the light that shines collectively. When you reflect on all of this, a smile emerges, a quiet joy, because you know you are no longer at the mercy of other people's opinions. You have embraced your own story. You chose to be the author, not the supporting character, and so you move forward. With firm steps, an open heart, and a new determination. You don't just exist, you live fully. In the end, the reality has already been presented, and now you can write the blank pages of your own life.